So week 2, who do you think gets fired first, Matt Rhule or Nathaniel Hackett? And let me remind you of the circumstances of these two situations. Matt Rhule, year 3, rich ass owner, gave him way too big of a contract coming out of college. He'd never proven a thing in the NFL. It's been a disaster, partly because of that same owner's obsession with getting a franchise quarterback and, like, granting Sam Darnold's 5th-year option right off the bat. And then let's also trade for Baker Mayfield. And we're also in on Deshaun Watson.
And PJ Walker and Cam Newton. It's like
and,
a quarterback
and
carousel.
Matt
Corral,
Corral.
who's out for the season.
So, like, this is David Tepper's own doing in part, but is a billionaire owner going to recognize his own fallibility in a situation like this?
But also,
No.
good coaches make the most of less than ideal situations.
Yes.
And I think as much as the team schematically and organizationally and in terms of personnel might not look like it makes sense, there have been more difficult situations for head coaches that they've made the most of and been successful with. Like, it's not super acceptable that Rhule has talents like Christian McCaffrey. While he's obviously a huge injury concern whenever he plays, he's still Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and then also on the other side of the ball, like we were talking about, Brian Burns, and so a few pretty, I mean, Brian Burns especially, 24, 25-year-old guy, an incredible pass rusher. I mean, you have to be able to maximize the plus guys on your team. And if you're not doing it, that's on you. That's on Matt Rhule.
Yeah. I mean, and so to my point though, right, I don't think Tepper is going to be able to understand his own role in creating the situation or reckon with it, given, like, just billionaire ego. So that, plus now the other situation, Nathaniel Hackett, hired by a previous regime before current ownership took over. Disastrous game management, discipline issues in the first 2 games. Really low scoring efforts from an offensive head coach with a quarterback that was just paid a ton more money in a new contract. Like, who gets out of town first?
So my answer to this question, between the two, is I would say, because beyond the actual flubs or gaffes or lack of success or lack of a track record, I think what makes owners react the most is bad press. In the sense that I think that, for example, Urban Meyer was going to stick around, apparently, according to the Khan family, until it simply was too much to bear, and it almost even looked like potentially...
Cost.
Yeah, it almost even apparently looked like the locker room might frickin' mutiny if the guy continued to be their head coach. So the reason I say and get all that being said is because I think with a new ownership group, like you said, who didn't hire Hackett, if this stuff keeps happening where it's like, you spent this much money on Russell Wilson, didn't even employ him in the first game that he's playing to, like, try and win the game. It's emblematic of wasted resources, wasted assets, wasted money, and the fact that he's also kind of showing his ass as not being able to kind of, like, keep a team disciplined or functional or playing quality ball. And also, I understand when people would say it's 2 games, but at the same time, it's 2 games out of 17. Football in its essence, because of how short the season is and you play once a week, it's a small sample size any way you slice it. If this team and this ownership group and this front office had way bigger designs on playoff success and way bigger expectations, they're not going to cut Russ, the guy. They're not going to cut Russ or try and trade Russ, the guy that they spent $250 million on. They're going to fire their coach.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Rhule first. I'm gonna go with Rhule. Rhule's the first to go.
Can I?
Because his seat was the hottest going in.
If I may, though, can I give my answer that does not include either of these guys?
Put yourself on camera. We're trying to do this.
Should we debut the Bradley Cam?
We should debut Bradley Cam. Oh, there he is.
Oh, look who it is! Hello, chat.
Oh,
it's me.
Man, diabolical.
Yeah, no, it's a love-hate relationship with me and all my boys, me and all my squad in the chat.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. So my third party option would be Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Because I know the Cardinals won this game in a kind of spectacular fashion, but they only won because of Kyler Murray's heroics. They did not win because of like any sort of stellar coaching decision from Cliff Kingsbury.
Well,
Their entire offense, essentially, even last year and this year, has kind of been, "Hey, Kyler, like run around and see if you can do something." Which he literally did for that 2-point conversion. He just ran around for like 20 yards until the defensive ends got tired on the Raiders. They just were like,
no, that wasn't even the 2-point conversion yet, right?
Oh, sorry, it might have been the actual.
It was the drive to get down.
Yes.
The 2-point conversion was another incredible play. But like the reason Kingsbury might stick, I think, is going to stick around the longest of these three is because of this intrinsic and the dynamics of one, Kyler Murray having the same agent as his head coach, them being tied together from back to college.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
like this entire offense being in his vision, and surrounded by like just Kyler Murray as being the centerpiece of all of this. That is why I think Kingsbury will be the last to go. But after last week, I thought that the Cardinals were dead in the water, and I thought he was going to be he was definitely gone. So
my issue, the thing that I think, if I'm not mistaken, from last year or the year before, Roger Sherman over at The Ringer pointed out in one of his like winners and losers columns for the NFL is that Cliff Kingsbury is someone who is basically was basically seen as a revolutionary when he was hired at Texas Tech, and he was basically seen as a revolutionary when he was hired at the Cardinals. The issue with this revolutionary guy is he's revolutionary for 8 games. Everyone figures out what is so revolutionary about him, and then he never changes anything.
Never adjusts.
If you look at the splits from his first few seasons at Texas Tech, they were on fire.
Yeah.
First eight or so games of the season. Second half, they lost almost every game.
Yep.
Same thing with the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, went in his first year, I think 3-0, 4-0,
and then at the end of the year,
weeks 12 through 17, 12 through 16, or whatever it was at the time, they just did not. They don't make any adjustments. People figure like you cannot be a successful NFL team and be so predictable that they can basically that other teams can essentially telegraph your every move.
You have to keep some things in your back pocket for that time period, and then also adjust your system. And
window dressing is so important in the sense of like you need to, in terms of like if your offense is motionless, if your offense, if every guy is supposed to be essentially, if every guy ostensibly is running out, if every guy is essentially running a slant, if every guy is essentially, chip blocking or going out into the flat, and there's no misdirection whatsoever, you're done. You're dead.
Yeah.
You cannot be a successful NFL team anymore. It can't. They can. The other team cannot have your game plan basically on their wrist. It's just not. It's not sustainable.
Nope.